Hey everybody, PJ back with Exotic Car Hacks, and today we are going to be talking about a Lamborghini Countach. Why it's awesome, what's not about it, some perhaps facts about the money factor, and then of course how to actually order one if you had a chance to. But before we do, I would like to share a special message with you. The first one being, please like, turn on notifications, and start interacting with me. The more you talk, the more I kind of know what's on your mind, what you want to learn about, and we talk about it. And then of course, I sell a course on how to car hack. If you don't know what that is, click the link in the description, take the free training, learn it. Hopefully you'll join us. We now have over 15,000 members. It's an incredible place to be, and we'd love to have you, even if you're retarded. But one of the things that we're talking about today, before we start talking about the Countach, it's this idea of socialism. Because you see, I saw a graphic literally come around me, and it was this particular graphic here. I just want to show it to you for a second. And it says, in case you couldn't see it, they didn't call it the $1 trillion Wall Street bailout socialism. They didn't call nearly 1 trillion oil and gas subsidies socialism. They don't call the billions in farmer bailouts socialism. But healthcare, wages, food for poor people, socialism. So I want to kind of address something that those with smaller IQs that don't seem to understand how capitalism and socialism work should perhaps pay attention to. Because, I mean, forgive me for saying, it's just freaking morons. And some of you watching this probably fall into that category. So perhaps a good opportunity to have a conversation. And if you can't get past my attitude or my very direct, making you feel like crap attitude, you can turn off and go watch the Disney Channel. They're entertaining new applicants for 2023. But the point here that I'm trying to make is that when you bail out a bank, it's not socialism because you don't have a choice. And one of the things poor people don't understand is that I think we can all agree, rich and poor people, that many banks, not all banks, are ran very poorly. They make very poor choices that agreed. We can agree that gas pricing often goes up as a matter of greed, not necessarily following the true cost of gas, right? We can also figure out that the cost of food is rising incredibly fast, and farmers aren't helping us all the time. Now, we can look at all these things and certainly have a debate about how well ran these organizations are. Or not, or who should get fired or not. Fully agreed. But one of the debates we can't really have, because it doesn't really make any sense to have it, is that we should allow a bank, like a Bank of America or like a SunTrust or one of these large banks, to fail rather than to get consolidated. And when I hear stuff like that, it just bothers me because there's so much ignorance in the world that thinking that, you know, because banks are getting richer, therefore poor people are getting poorer, so we can't be bailing them out because we're taking taxes from all people to bail them out. But the reality is, I want you to try to envision on a large scale a gas company or a bank not doing its job. And I don't mean its job from what it's owed to the people or what it's owed to its shareholders. I mean its job. You are used to going to an ATM to get money that you have in that bank, right? Do you really think that if a bank went under, they would just write you a check in a week and be like, sorry, the money's in your account and we couldn't keep our doors open, so we're sending you your money back? Imagine what would happen if all the money you had in a bank was locked in that bank for 2 years after its demise. Now imagine if a population of, let's say, for example, 700 million had 100 million people that had that very same problem. Now, how about gas? Did you guys see what happened in Florida when someone hacked the pipeline? Did you see that actually like for 2 days there was a shortage of gas? There was an hour-long line to just get gas. Like for one pipeline, for one time. Imagine if all of Shell or all of Exxon goes out of business. How do you get anywhere? Does it matter you're rich? Does it matter you're poor? No. What happens if you go to a supermarket and there's nothing to buy? Like, what if you can't buy chicken? What if you can't buy fish? What if you can't buy anything? And you don't have food? What if their favorite restaurants all close because they can't buy anything? One of the things you guys need to understand is that capitalism is the way this country is ran. capitalism means there's a high level of consumption of goods. The issues with farmers is that there's a serious food shortage across the globe. It has nothing to do with just this country or not. The problem with oil companies, right, is that there's also a shortage of oil in certain places at certain times. And the dynamics change, and it's an ever-changing industry going through a massive amount of attempts at keeping itself alive despite all these climate reforms coming that are very much necessary. And the same can be said about banks in general. The world is changing, right? But there is one thing that's a fact, and it's that all of these industries have basically created titans and giants that are too big to fail. And they're too big to fail because they would destroy our entire way of life across the board. Poor, super rich. And that can't happen because then the entire country would stop and riots would break out and things wouldn't be very amicable here, period. And one of the big things people don't realize is that while we could bail out poor people, the problem is they'd be poor again. And if we bail them out again, they'd be poor again. If a person is poor in America, it is 99% of the time their fault. It is not the byproduct of a changing environment. It is the byproduct of the lack of adaptation, despite an infinite amount of resources available. Even if these resources are free, they are not being used. So therefore, it doesn't matter what you give a poor person, they'll be poor again. But it does matter when you don't allow a bank to fail, because it would impact the entire way of life for a third of the country, but it would also, now that you've given them some money, force them into change to not repeat that exact same mistake. And while there's a lot of issues or lobbying and things like that occur, it is a very different thing to call a bailout for a bank socialism and to think about giving poor people or random people money on the hopes that they will change when all the resources were free to begin with and they didn't. So, that said, we can put the socialism conversation behind us and talk about the new $2.6 million Lamborghini Countach. Yay! So, what about the $2.6 million Countach? A couple of key elements. I'm not a petrol head or a motor head, nor do I give a shit what kind of motor it comes with. What I can tell you is basically it's a Scion with a new shell, right? And I think more people are calling it the Aventador shell, but it's really not. It's a Scion because it's got the same kind of axle, motor setup, and more importantly, it's got the same exact fucking look. You have to be blind to not see the interface inside. You have to be blind to not see the same cues like the taillights and shit. It's a fucking Scion. Just get over it. Who gives a shit? But there is an argument going on as will it bring money out there? Will it be a car that's worth more? And there's two fundamental things we need to look at in order to understand the Countach and its future values. One, this was the first year ever that Lamborghini crushed Ferrari in sales and values to a point of no return. Lamborghini has become the best, period, when it comes to resale values of their cars. 10 times over Ferrari. So I think that Lamborghini is onto something finally, and I think they're going or about to get a lot of clout for their hyper supercars, etc. Doesn't mean Ferrari won't, but I think there is an era of new exotic car owners, and Lamborghini as a company is in the forefront of it rather than Ferrari. I think old money's starting to die off, and new money's looking for excitement and not just the whole I'm rich, I'm white, and I sit on a couch and I had 10 years of generational wealth, right? So that is starting to change, and a lot of the new up-and-coming money is going the Lamborghini way. One. Two, the Countach comes with a name, like a 50-year-old name, and that's really important, and people don't realize that. Sometimes they go, well, it's just a remade Scion, but it doesn't matter because of the name it carries. And then the other thing we need to realize is that the hypercar markets are no longer a $1 million market. They're really a $2 million plus market. And while I don't agree with the Countach price tag, and I think that it sucks that it's $2.6 million, but the main reason I couldn't order one, and I'm gonna be very direct with you, is the issue with ordering one is that you have to tie up a $1.5 million deposit for a year, and that cost of money matters. So it's very hard to justify. There still will be one coming under our business, not under my personal ownership. And we'll see how well we do once it gets here from a reselling standpoint, or if it'll be flipped before it even gets here. I don't know yet. We're still working the details out, so I don't want to speak prematurely. But some of the things I wanted to point out were that, one, I think the car will do very, very well. Two, I think the car looks fantastic, and I think it allows closure to a generation who had that poster on their wall. And perhaps now 112 people can afford to make that poster a reality and not just have to look at some shitbox old ass car in their garage, but rather the best version of what a Lamborghini has to offer, and yet with the iconic feeling of the past, right? So I think a fantastic marketing move by Lamborghini. And I think one of the key reasons this car will do way better than the Sion did, because it means something. And I think every time you connect people to their past, they get excited about it. So I think the Countach, from a design standpoint, I think it's good. It's way better than the Sion in my opinion, much more proportional. I don't like the front as much. I prefer the back with the quad center exhaust. It's kind of a mixed feeling thing, right? Like, I think the Sion was a good looking car too, but I really think this hopefully will be even better looking in person. Now, the piece again that I think I want to focus on here is, while the technology may not be significantly ahead of its time, as it's nothing more than a recycled Sion, I do think the name will carry a premium. We'll see when the car comes out. We'll see where that million, is there a million markup? Is there a $500,000 markup? Is there a 300K markup? The Sion currently is at no more than 500,000, and I think it could be easily bought at sticker still if you can find someone willing to let one go. So I don't think the Sion really was a hit in that way, but I think the Sion was a little bit early. I think we're going to see that change happen a lot for Lamborghini this year, and I think the Countach is a very, very effective marketing angle. So congrats to Lamborghini on the launch of their new Countach, and again, to those of you watching, you let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Do you think the new Countach will bring a premium, and how much? And of course, click on notifications, subscribe, and more importantly, leave a comment. Let me know what's up, and I'll catch you on the next video for Exotic Car Hacks.